Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Nobodies. We've been away for the summer. We had things to do. We had to relax and recover, and we were just talking about it, and we're not feeling so relaxed and recovered. But we're back, and we got to get this thing going, hey? And we gotta generate some momentum again. I can't remember what episode we're at, but I think we said we were gonna try to get to 30, and I feel like we're in like the low, maybe 23, 24, somewhere around there. So Kyle, we got 6 or 7, and then we got to make a decision about whether we want to keep this thing going on. So, but welcome back, man. I'm looking forward to talking to you. So
yeah, man, nice to see you, pal. I keep waiting for the checks in the mail for all this money that we're gonna make from this podcast, but I haven't seen a dime yet.
Yeah, but maybe I haven't sent them to you yet.
Yeah, I would guess it's like 26 or 27, but that's not bad. That's I don't know. That's 27 episodes or 26, whatever it is. Like, that's not nothing. That's a lot. And I've learned a lot. You've learned a lot. Well, I mean, you've been doing the vast majority of the work on this. So like film editing and, audio editing and even like interview skills and all that stuff. So I would say it's been successful from many aspects.
It's been, pretty much 8 months, almost. Not quite a year, but almost a year ago since we had that chat at my dining table where we were like, let's think about doing this.
Where I awkwardly accepted. No, see, here's what happened at that whole dinner thing. So Rupesh texted me, he's like, hey, come over for dinner. I'm like, no. I'm not coming over for dinner, but like, we'll come over for like an afternoon hangout. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. He's like, okay. So we show up. It's like 2:00. I don't know. We hang out from 2 to 5. And in the worst possible form ever for a guest, as I'm leaving, Rupesh says, you guys could stay for dinner. Or, no, you know what? You should have just stayed for dinner. And probably as just like a final nicety, as he shepherds me out the door, and then him and his family can enjoy their dinner alone. And I accept. I say, well, yeah, okay, we'll stay for dinner. And my wife, I remember she looked at me and she's like, what do you, like, that is the worst possible form you could possibly take as a guest. But I did, and we had a great time, and you made dinner sort of in a rush because you didn't think you were going to have to make dinner for us, but so I was about the worst guest ever, but it all worked out, so that's good. So I would like to formally apologize for that, because
you apologize enough, man. That was we loved having you over. We were glad you accepted, even though it was a little awkward at the time.
Of course it was. It was just terrible fucking.
I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but
I know nobody would have, and I did, and that's what my wife says. Like, people say things when you're leaving that might and I have no doubt that you sincerely wanted us to stay for dinner, but I'm sure I've made offers as people are walking out the door that I never thought they would accept, and if they did, I'd be like, all right. But you were there. You had it was salmon, I remember, and some sweet potatoes and maybe a salad. Can't remember, but
yeah. And our 2 kids had fun sitting at their little table, and
well, your kid did. She was nice and sat and ate dinner, and my kid ran around while your kid tried to like convince my kid to eat his supper, because that's how nice your little girl is.
That was a moment. I don't think any of us, the 4 of us, will ever forget that. That was
hilarious. Super.
That was
funny.
hilarious. Yeah.
But
yes, almost a year ago since we had that conversation, man, and you encouraged me to be like, yeah, let's do this. So here we are.
Did it. We changed the world.
Yeah. Well,
maybe, I don't know. Changed our worlds, right?
Hey, people are listening. People are listening. Yeah.
That's right. So what's going on? We actually haven't had a conversation before this episode, probably in six weeks, maybe more.
Yeah, surprise, guys. Kyle and I, we don't talk every day. We're like, we may seem like we're like best friends, but like, we're actually, we just,
Last time we would have talked, was it you invited me over for food at your house, and you made us waffles?
It was early July. We talked then, and then we both just got going with our vacations and work and all that. So yeah, no, it's a pleasure. It's honestly, I was really looking forward to catching up with you. So
yeah, buddy, me too.
What's going on? We're in a federal election in Canada.
Yeah, I just voted by mail.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it's super easy. You just fill it for anybody listening, and it might be too late now because the election's on the 20th.
20th, yeah.
That's 12th. So I don't know. There might be a cutoff. But yeah, I like filled out a form online on probably Tuesday. I had the ballot in my mailbox on Thursday, and
Mm.
I mailed it off on Friday. So
So
I've already voted.
you did one of those fake ballots then?
If you're Donald Trump, yeah, it's fake. But for everybody else in the world, that's a
Do
viable
you?
way to vote.
I was thinking, like, do you think any of that's going to play out because mail-in voting is like a thing this time around? Do you think that's going to creep up into Canada?
I don't know. I mean, maybe because it was such a hot topic in the States, or I don't even know if it ever was a hot topic, but they like Trump would talk about it, and so they would get media coverage. It's probably one of those things that whatever 0.01% of people who were involved in elections actually cared about, but
Mm.
it got equal airtime to other more relevant issues just because
Mm.
one schmuck was talking about it. So I don't know. I don't think so. Like, you think Aaron O'Toole would sort of these mail-in ballots are bullshit and they can be tampered with or whatever the argument is.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be about O'Toole. I think maybe it would be the People's Party of Canada or whatever. They actually have like they might have a little bit of sway in this election, like in terms of how you might get some bleeding off from the Conservatives to go to this People's Party of Canada. So for folks outside of Canada, we have definitely a multi-party system. Although typically it's been Conservative and Liberals who have formed government.
At the
The
federal level, yeah.
NDP, yeah, the federal side, the NDP has sometimes played a role in the opposition, but it's typically been those two parties. But sometimes these other sort of third, fourth, fifth parties can really steal votes from the Liberals and Conservatives. So people are saying the People's Party of Canada is gaining steam. I think it has to do with just COVID, and people are frustrated, and people feel like their freedoms are being taken away, and Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, is certainly a voice for that. It seems like so.
Yeah, I think they'll sort of play the role of vote siphoner or whatever. The winner will be decided maybe not because the PPC was in, but they will take votes that traditionally would have gone to somebody else and sort of lessen that margin for those groups. So, and that's I think what makes the multi-party. I mean, it's a cool system because you don't have to adhere to A or B, which is nice. Like, there's a broad political spectrum that you can kind of choose to represent yourself or try to represent yourself by voting for them. But the other thing is on election day, it can be super fun to sort of see, these smaller groups or parties steal votes and siphon votes and really sway the results as a result of it. I always find it interesting anyways.
What do you think about strategic voting? Do you think that should be? Do you think people should just vote? I mean, people should vote however they want to vote, of course. But do you think that, I think that there's obviously we've talked about the electoral system at ends, and that would sort of get rid of the whole strategic voting thing, because then you would ensure your voice is properly represented. But sometimes that strategic voting thing frustrates me. I can understand how it plays a role, like obviously when Trudeau and the Liberals got elected the first time around, there's no question strategic voting to get rid of the Conservatives at that time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that it's important for people to vote for who they really want.
Yeah, I've never done it, but I see the rationale behind it. I suppose I don't know if I'd ever do it though. I generally just try to, give my vote to the person I have the most faith in to carry out whatever I see as that can represent my values. So I've never done it, but as a strategic tool, if it's something that's allowable under our current system, then I mean, why wouldn't you take advantage of it if it helps you sort of get a point across or whatever, right? Like, I don't know. I'm fine with it personally, but I've never done it, and I don't know that I ever would. It would have to be a very interesting scenario for me to do it.
Well, there are definitely some groups who are were really successful at coordinating that. So, like, I think it has to. You have to be very well coordinated for it to actually pan out, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you have to. There's so many ridings. You got to make sure that it's all connected and that everyone's kind of moving at the same time. Like, it's quite an effort. If it doesn't work out, then it's like I don't know what it's all done for then, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it could be a lot of wasted votes, or it could be perceived as a lot of wasted votes, I suppose, if it's not done in a coordinated manner. Yeah. I don't bring the political insight that Rupesh has. I feel like politics to you is like a it's a passion. It's like something that you like when you have free time, you like read about it, and like you're this passionate guy that wants to like drive change. And I always have like really admired that about you. And I used to be really
Thanks.
involved in politics, but now I'm just like a grumpy old man or whatever it is. But I think I'm becoming like more of a fatalist or something. I'm just like, it is what it is. Things are going to be how they're going to be.
Dude, you're busy though, man. You got
I'm
things like I
lazy,
can
I
now.
think.
I mean, I appreciate it a lot more having one kid. That when when I didn't have kids, when I didn't understand how people weren't paying attention. But when you've got like a kid or multiple kids or a busy family, you don't have time to pay attention to. Now I don't think that necessarily is an excuse for not voting
Yeah,
or
yeah.
trying
No,
to
no, you
learn
should
about
always
the
vote.
issues. I feel very passionate about people voting, but I could totally understand and appreciate how people are just not attuned with the day to day grind of the issues or the politics or who's up and who's down. I mean, you got bigger things to worry about, right?
Totally, yeah. Like I had a couple projects, small projects that if I didn't have kids, it would take me a Sunday afternoon. That have taken me weeks because I can chip in 45 minutes here, half an hour here, maybe an hour here. Um, but I mean, whatever. I didn't have kids to get more free time. But totally. Like that's right. Like it's a different. There's a different premium placed on free time, and there's a different way that you
Mm-hmm.
handle your free time. And sometimes you're like, man, I have all these goals and all these things I want to do, but I'm just exhausted. And honestly, I just want to like read a book. I just want to scroll on my phone for 20 minutes before I go to bed, or you want to catch up on whatever um, your interests are. If it's news, if it's sports, if it's something else. I like watching sports and like catching up on sports. I watched a lot of baseball when my second son was born because I would just rock him at night, rock him at night, rock him at night, and so I
Mm-hmm.
could catch kind of the late game, and it was awesome. But I haven't watched a football game or a baseball game or anything in a while, which is a bummer because these Blue Jays. I don't know if you've been keeping up on this.
No, not at all.
Oh man, so this AL East, which is the Jays division, right? There's a bunch of great teams in that division. There's the Tampa Bay Rays, there's Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Stacked.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
likely that three teams from that division are going to make the playoffs. And how it works
Mm-hmm.
is there's the AL and then the NL, and there's four divisions in each, and the so the division champ all go to the playoffs. So that's four teams, and then there's two more wild cards. Or sorry, there's three divisions in each league. Sorry about that. So there's so there's the div champ, so that's three teams, and then there's two more wild cards. So they can come from any division. But anyways, these Blue Jays, like 8 weeks ago, people were just like, they're out of the playoffs. They've been on a couple big winning streaks. They just swept the Yankees 4 games in a row, and in the meantime, the Yankees have cratered. So the Blue Jays, I think, as of today, are in a playoff position by like half a game, but they're competing with like four.
Are they leading the division?
No. They're like so so the Rays have it locked up,
Okay.
and the Red Sox have the first wild card locked up.
Okay.
So whoever gets third place in the AL East is probably going to make the playoffs as
Okay.
the second wild card. And so right now, I think as of today, September 12th, the Jays are in that second wild card spot because they've just gone on a tear. But it's good. Like there's probably 20 games left. It's going to be such an interesting finish to the season. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just hit his 44th home run, ties him for home run lead in the league behind with Shohei Ohtani, which I don't know if you've heard about Shohei Ohtani.
No.
People are calling him the second coming of Babe Ruth. Kid
Whoa.
pitches, throws smoke, and he hits, which is
Who does
like
he play for?
he's the Los Angeles Angels.
Okay.
Anyways, that's a different story. But so there's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's been the number one prospect in baseball for a long time, finally shown his chops, just hit his 44th home run, which is pretty good. He also has a chance at a Triple Crown, which is where you lead the league in home runs, batting average, and RBIs. Hasn't been done since 2012, since Miguel Cabrera did it with the Tigers. I think he's with the Tigers then. And then before that, it hadn't been done since I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like the 30s or 40s. Like it's like this isn't something that happens very often where somebody wins
I thought
a Triple Crown.
am I wrong to say that, or maybe he was close, but I thought Carlos Delgado was very close.
Could have been close, but he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. Okay.
At least here, I'm gonna get this wrong. I'm sure that Vladdy has a chance to do it, to be the first guy to do it since 2012 for sure. And then before that, which would have been like Delgado's prime.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been done since It's
20s or
either
30s,
73 or 37, but like long time ago.
Okay.
Was like that's I am no baseball scholar, but anyway, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with baseball right now, and I haven't really been able to watch much of it. So I'm hoping that I can watch at least a game or two down the stretch because it should be super interesting.
When the Jays are in the playoffs, and you and I, because we were working together, if you remember.
Yeah. I do.
And the Jays were, what was it, 20? It might have been 2015 or something.
2015.
But obviously Joey Bats hit that home run, and we were all we had it played in our little lunchroom there, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, because that was like game. It was was it the I can't remember, was the ALDS.
It was ALDS.
It might have been the ALDS, and they're playing Texas Rangers, who they didn't, there was no love lost between those teams. There was a seventh inning, and that was the weirdest seventh inning, where like there was like pitcher there was a batter. So Odor gets home because what was his name? The catcher, Martin. Anyways, he tries to throw the ball back to the Blue Jays pitcher, hits the batter. Unintentionally, but the batter didn't intentionally impede the throw, so Odor gets to run home, and that I think gives the Rangers the lead. And that was in the seventh. That's in the top of the seventh, bottom seven, because everybody's like, "Fuck, the Jays just gave up a lead, they're gonna lose." And then Joey Bats. I'll never forget that home run for as long as I live. And I think we hugged after maybe.
For sure.
Yeah, and those games started so early. Because, it was in Toronto. Game probably started at 6 in Toronto, which is 4 o'clock where we live. Yeah, so we just stuck around, worked late, and watched this baseball game. That was amazing. That was one of the best baseball games I've ever seen. That was probably the craziest inning of baseball I've ever seen. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that home run goes down probably second to Joe Carter's.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It was so good. And the thing is, Joey Bats hit another home run. I was in a dive. I was watching the game. I think it was that same year. I was watching the game at my house, and I used streaming service to watch it, and the internet cut out, and I was like, I gotta watch this game because it was such a good game. And I ran down the block. There was this dive bar. It was the worst bar in Edmonton. It's awful, awful bar. I'd been there once or twice. I don't know how, just like by mistake. I mean, it was close, right? Man, this bar was so bad. One time I went in, I was killing time with a buddy. I was like, hey, I'll get a pint of like whatever you have on tap. He had one thing on tap, and I think it was black ice, which if anybody's ever had black ice, it's like the worst beer in the world. And I watched him pour my beer and then dump, and like just an awful pour, so like tons of head on the beer, right? Scoops the head off into this other glass and sets it aside until like all the bubbles leave and it's just warm beer. Yeah. Into this glass that he's clearly been doing that, for like the last hour. Because it's like 3/4 full now with this room temperature beer. And he gives me the cold one. Next guy that comes in, asks for a beer, he takes the room temperature foam beer that's no longer foam. It's like flat. And he just like tops it off with like 1/4 of a pint of black ice. And this guy just took it, which I was amazed by. And it was like $5 for this pint of black ice. Anyways, I run down, and the only food you could get was like microwaved, it was like Tostito, taquitos.
Okay, taquitos.
So it's like microwave
taquitos.
And it's one guy who owns and works at the place, and he would go in the back and heat up your food in a microwave, and you could see him. He would just like take a frozen bag, dump it on a plate, put it in the microwave, bring it out. Anyways, so this is not a nice bar. So I run down to this bar by myself, have a beer, watch Joey Bats hit another game-winning home run in that same playoffs. They ended up losing that series, though, so it's not – it must have been against Cleveland maybe. Can't remember. And I hugged a total stranger. There was this other guy that was there by himself, maybe because the internet cut out, and we both just like, yeah! And then we just get up and are looking around, and like everybody else is playing VLTs and doesn't give a shit, just eating their terrible taquitos. And me and this guy are like, ah! And we just hug. I've never met this man before in my life. And we just hug. And then we didn't say a word. And then he just like went and sat down, and I went and sat down, and we didn't talk after that. Anyways, a lot of memories tied to that 2015, if that's what it was, 2015 playoffs.
The Jays are just one of those teams in Canada that just brings like the country together. Like it's like a historical franchise. Even like I think it like transcends Canada. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I think that the Leafs probably have a little bit of that, but people in the States know the Leafs, but I think they're like, that's like an iconic Canadian team, sort of the Montreal Canadiens. For some reason, there's like, I think there are fans for the Jays outside of Canada.
Oh, probably.
That maybe doesn't exist with any of the other major sports teams in Canada. Like, I think the Raptors, like, people just kind of, if you're in Canada and you're Toronto, you can be a Raptors fan, but if you're outside of that, they're probably not going to be. Okay. But I think the Jays are like one of those transcending teams that everyone seems to want to cheer for.
They're a pretty likable bunch, and they always have been from what I recall. I can't remember any. I watched baseball when I was a kid, like the Joe Carter era, and then I kind of got away from it and started watching again around the Roy Halladay era.
Oh yeah.
So like Doug
I was thinking about Doc too.
Oh man,
that's sad.
Super sad. He's in the Hall of Fame now, which he should be because he was great,
Yeah.
but brutal. But yeah, you're probably right, and it's sweet because the Jays. So there's sort of always a likable bunch, at least from what I can recall, and I'm a fan of the team, so maybe that's why. But I have friends who are like Calgary Flames fans, and I'm an Oilers fan, and we like cannot talk about hockey because we just get mad. But we both like the Jays, and so we can cheer for the same team with the Jays. Because it is like Canada-wide team. Like the Maple Leafs, there's a real friction, I feel like, between like the rest of Canada and like Toronto. Because like the Toronto media, which is like Rogers is based in Toronto, Toronto owned, I think. All these major sport networks give the Leafs so much coverage that the rest of Canada and all these articles coming out about Connor McDavid wanting to leave Edmonton and stuff. Anyway, so there's like a bit of friction between like that Toronto media and like the rest of Canada, I feel like. But the Jays, man, and probably, I mean, maybe the Raptors too, coast to coast.
I think the Raptors are getting there for sure after that championship. Like when people watch that, right? I think that brought a lot of attention.
I watched that playoffs, and I don't know anything about basketball. I haven't watched. The only other basketball game I've watched from start to finish was when Shaq was playing for the Magic, and I think he was playing David Robinson with the Spurs. And it was this big matchup because Shaq had never played David Robinson. They were the two best players. I can't remember.
Oh, man, that's probably 95 maybe.
Yeah, so I tuned into that whole game because it was so hyped up. And I think that's what it was, Shaq versus David Robinson.
And so you've never watched a whole basketball game since then?
Well, I have it like when I was going to university, we'd go to games for sure. Because it's fun. And it was like guys that you might know or whatever. So, yeah, like collegiate-wise, I've gone. And high school, I had a lot of friends that played, so I'd go watch them play and stuff. But I haven't tuned into an NBA game really before this Raps run, and really after. I haven't really followed it much either, which, I mean, not that like basketball, I feel like is one of the fastest growing sports in the world.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. They've really made inroads in Asia, and, Masai Ujiri, the president of the Raptors, is really focused on Africa and bringing the game there. Cool. And I think that sport is definitely, I mean, it's so easy to play, right? Like, I mean, soccer is the easiest. You just need a ball and you can put two pylons and you got it, right? But the next easiest is probably basketball, perhaps.
Yeah.
So,
the ball in a hoop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know how we got started on this, but, free time. So I'm hoping that like I can, catch a game or two down the stretch, but you're totally right. How you view free time and the time that you have to put towards projects or whatever it is, it's just limited. It's like kid 1 takes up a lot of your free time, but there's a little bit of free time left, whatever that is, and then kid 2 just kind of takes up whatever you got plus extra. So, but I mean, whatever. We're happy and tired sometimes and all that stuff, but that's just how it is.
What drove you to do the paper ballot as opposed to going to the polls?
Part of it was 2 kids and like not having a ton of time. It was just easier to do it. Part of it's probably COVID. I think my wife was the one that kind of looked into it and said that she was going to do it and said that I should look into it. And so she'd done the legwork, and so it was pretty easy for me to do. And just I think it's more of a simplicity thing at this point. But I don't know. I'm not really sure. She was.
I'm like this. I don't know. I'm like this weird romantic when it comes to like wanting to go to like election day and got to go to the polls and be a part of that whole experience.
Democracy, man. You should be proud of it. Like we should all be so grateful that we
should be cheering. Like, I don't understand why people don't vote. I don't get it, man.
That's insane. And I don't know that I've voted every single election from the time I was 18 on. I certainly have since I've been 20, probably 5 on, and I've sort of understood the value of democracy and gotten a little bit more involved in politics. But Politics was never something that I was really interested in or involved with until, yeah, probably my mid 20s or so, maybe even late 20s, when I sort of became a little bit more passionate about certain things. And then you kind of align yourself with whatever party before that, but or that would represent best those passions for you. But I never was really too interested in politics or took any
Mm-hmm.
real passion in it, and I don't know why that was. So I can't promise you that I've taken every opportunity to vote,
Mm.
honestly, which I'm a little embarrassed of, because now that I'm adult and I see how special it is, I absolutely do every time. But it
Mm.
took some growing up for me to realize how special it was.
Mm-hmm.
But like people die for
Did you?
democracy, man. Like, and we have it. Like we have it. It's awesome.
Well, I think people are starting to see. I mean, obviously for good reason, but like when freedoms are taken away, right? And this is for a legitimate reason, but it's precious, right? So precious.
Yeah.
And you hear so many stories about other countries, dark spots like North Korea, which it's just so saddening. Did you hear Yeonmin Park's story?
No.
She was on Joe Rogan, and then she was on a couple other ones. I mean, she's done a book 4 or 5 years ago or whatever, but she talks about her story of escaping North Korea. And there's so many, there not so many, but there are many other people who have escaped and told their stories. But just she was talking about how it was. I couldn't. She did a really good way. She did a really good job at framing this, because Joe Rogan had asked her about why wouldn't the government help a starving population, and she said, well, they don't want to. They want to keep 90% of their people starved, because if people are just focused on trying to find food, they don't rise up and they can't think about other things, right?
Oh,
So like, how do you, like, nothing is going to change, and there's the whole geopolitical issue. Apparently, like, China's had a huge influence on this, and so she says nothing changes until something changes with China, right? So you're talking about, I don't know how many tens of millions of people are in North Korea. I don't know if there's an accurate count, who they have nothing. They can't own land. Apparently, they can't raise their own food. Like,
yeah. I'm just reading this
you
book.
think about that extreme. You shouldn't even have to go to that extreme to make you want to vote. But like when you think about that, those kind of situations exist, and now people are realizing, what restrictions of freedoms, again, for legitimate reasons, but still restrictions of freedoms, what that is doing to people. Imagine that was all the time, and you didn't have a voice at all in the political future of your country.
And
right?
the
Or
thing,
vision
you
of the
wouldn't
country.
even know. I wonder if you'd even know the difference. I'm just reading a book right now called The Orphan Master's Son. It's written by a guy named Adam Johnson, who is not from North Korea, so I don't know how accurate it is, but it's a story. It's fiction about this guy who grows up in an orphanage. His dad works at the orphanage, so he's an orphan, but he grows up in this orphanage in North Korea, and just his life through North Korea. And the one thing that's sort of it's I'm only about halfway through, but it's really, really interesting. But there's a bunch of highlights of, I don't know how accurate it is again, but of like North Korean life that this guy lives. And he at one part he visits Texas as part of a delegation representing, in the book it's Kim Jong Il, and people keep asking him, like, how can you live there? How can you live your life with no freedom? And he's like, you think that you have freedom? He's like, we just do whatever we're told all the time. And he's like, what's more? He's like, you have all these options and all these things or whatever, but to him, he's just like, like to us, freedom is, I just do whatever's told to me. I don't ask questions. I understand that there's no rationale. I just do it, and that's my freedom. And
That's all you know.
Totally. And he talks like the little joys that they take in their day to day life. And I was like, man. So it all sounded awful. But in the book, the guy's just like, this is kind of what I know. And like, people just disappear sometimes, and you never see them again. People get sent to these concentration camp prisons and like you never see them again. And I don't know, just really, really weird. But anyways, my point is, I wonder if you're born in that, and that's all you know, and you've sort of been, told since you were young that the dear leader is, and like the a greatest honor you can give is, your life to the dear leader, and true dedication, and like never question it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then there's like somebody's telling me that there are more internet servers in, is it Edmonton, than there are in all of North Korea. Like North Korea has something like 3.
It's absolutely dark.
Yeah,
Like
and
if
like
you
nobody
ever
has
see those
access
maps
to it.
about like, you ever see those satellite maps where they or the world at night and you see all the sparkles from the cities because of the lights. You look at dark North Korea and it's completely
Well,
black.
yeah, because they like shut off the power after a certain time, so you don't have any electricity
Mm.
after a certain time.
Mm.
Yeah, man, crazy, crazy,
But
crazy.
going back to like sort of that's the only thing, you know. Like when I was talking to Gilad, who came on the show, and you know he does all these, he showcases, you know, North Korean human rights films and all this stuff. But he was talking about that this one person who escaped North Korea, and he was raised in the prison, I think, and all he knew was, you know, you can't betray the leader, all this kind of stuff. And so when his family wanted to get away, he thought that, oh, this was betrayal, and he told the guards, and they killed his mom and everything like that. But that's all he knew. He knew that all he knew was that that's what you're supposed to do, right? And it wasn't until much later that he realized that, you know, there's actually a little bit more.
Oh,
So it's a very, very valid point and a very real point.
and
So.
in this book, and you know, again, it's fiction, and I have no idea how well Adam Johnson knows North Korea. It seems very well, or it seems plausible to me. Anyways, there's a, like, parents will teach their kids, like they'll say, hey, like, there might come a day where I have to say something that you think is bad, and you think I'm like selling out our family, but I'm doing it for our family. And the way that like the dad describes it to the kid is, he's like, hold my hand, okay? He's like, as a family, we are always holding hands. We are always holding hands together. And then he stands up and he says, this little boy is whatever. He's betrayed the great leader, and he, you know, is dispensing capitalist thoughts, you know, from our capitalist pig enemies or whatever. And he's like, and the boy like looks scared, and he's like, but see, our hands are being held. Our hands are being held. So like, we're a family, and we say things that might not seem right at the time, and then later, there comes a point where the mom has to sell out the dad to save the family. So like, and like they've talked about it before, to be like, if, you know, some government official comes down and is asking questions and is suspicious about some of your activity, if the whole family turns on one member, they'll take that one member to the concentration camp and they'll kill him, but it might save the mom and 2 kids. And so like they prepare for this eventuality where they're like, one day you might see your mom sell out your dad to the officials, and he's going to go away forever, but it might save you and your brother. Like it'll save the rest of us, and it's a sacrifice that we have to make. And like there, you know, he was teaching his kid this, and I don't know, man. Just
And
like,
the key there, Kyle, is that it sounds like it might, right? Because apparently is that if you are implicated, they'll search for your family and your extended family, and you might that extended family might not have anything to do with a crime that you may have committed, but they'll still prosecute you. You know, so it's like they can wipe out an entire generation or your entire bloodline because of this. Like, it's absolute genocide. What's happening over there?
That was the other thing in this book that's crazy. And again, I don't know if it's true, but there's a guy. So what often happens to like high-ranking government officials, or even like government interrogators that like go to families, they're like, you know, suspects, or people who have been accused of not being dedicated to the dear leader or whatever. They will often get thrown into these camps for some reason that somebody has found, because they've maybe slighted somebody or they know too much or something. And so this guy has a plant, and they have canning plants there apparently that, you know, don't always follow the most rigorous standards. And you know, so like sometimes, you know, cans will have botulism in them. And this one guy, he's a high-ranking government official, and one of these canneries is closed for a bit because all these canned peaches have botulism. And so he grabs a flat of these botulism-filled peaches and brings them to his home, because when he knows his time has come and they're going to come for him and his family, they're all going to get dressed up in their fine clothes, and they're going to sit around the table, and they're going to eat these peaches, and they're all going to die together. And it like, I don't know, man. Like, and so later in the book, and again, this is fiction, he gets captured, and somebody comes and it has like his file, and they're cutting off his finger and they're torturing him to get information, whatever it is. And again, this is a guy that like used to be a high-ranking official with the deer leader.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, just tell me, did my family die in white dresses? And they were like, yep. And like that was the signal from the family to him that yes, that they ate the peaches and they didn't get tortured by these government officials or whatever. Anyway, so there's all these insane stories that just seem so so insane that they're sort of plausible in a way from like all the other things that you've heard. And you'd hate to ever believe it. And again, I have no idea if it's true. It was written by Adam Johnson. It's fiction, so don't take this as fact. But I don't know, man. Like this book it won a Pulitzer Prize, so he's not just blowing smoke up people's asses. Anyways, but some
he's
of the
probably
stuff I've
got
heard,
it from
just,
a number of sources who've left North Korea. You know, I mean, the stuff you hear Yeonmi Park say in her interviews, like unbelievable. I can't even. I don't even want to talk about it. Like it was just. I almost started crying, man, just hearing the things that she was saying. It was. I had never heard stuff like that before.
I'll have to listen to it.
And you think that it's just not true. Like, how can something like that be true? But when she speaks about it with absolute conviction and authenticity, you know. And I don't know. It's really, really sad. And
yeah, brutal. Let's talk about something else. Let's
our podcast went pretty dark.
Huge bummer.
Dark. Main point there is get out to vote, guys. That's
yes, vote.
important.
Yeah, this all started somehow with a federal election in Canada. So vote.
Yeah.
So what else is new? What's shaking?
You know, we got really close to some wildfires driving into BC, which was super scary. Like BC's gotten BC for folks outside Canada. We're talking about British Columbia, which is one of our most western province and very susceptible to wildfires. And my family goes and drives out there for our vacation usually every year. And it was the closest we'd ever been to wildfires. So it was kind of scary. The interesting part was explaining it to Avina. She was actually asking about it like 1 or 2 weeks before we left. Cause you know, the wildfires had been going on since June of this year, right? Really getting pretty bad. And, she heard me talking about it. She's like, these wildfires, Daddy, like, how do they get created? And so explained like multiple ways of how these wildfires get created. Okay, well, how do they go away? Explain that in multiple ways. And she's like, okay. And then she just like processes it, doesn't really talk about it. And then like closer to day before, day of, she's like, I'm a little scared about these wildfires. Like, what's going to happen with that? I was like, no, you have nothing to worry about. We're going to drive right past them. Nothing to be scared about. And of course, we're driving down the Coquihalla Highway, which, to give people some context, it's like the main highway if you're going to drive into Vancouver, you know, traveling west, coming from the east. And it's just mountainous terrain. And,
is it one of the
you know,
highest
it's
highways in Canada?
Yeah, it's considered one of North America's most dangerous highways, especially in the winter. It's just up and down, well paved though. Like it's not like there's like you're driving on dirt roads or anything like that. But speeds, like they've got those speeds up to like 120 kilometers per hour. You know, it's just crazy. But of course, we drive down the Coquihalla and there's wildfires on either side of us. So I'm like Avina's like getting a little anxious and she's getting a little worried and trying to calm her down. And we ourselves, you know, are kind of worked up. And you can see the fire bombers kind of throwing water in the distance. And so, you know, in one way it was neat. And I say that in a very, you know, compassionate way, be like neat to see how those operations take place, but sad too. Cause when we drove like on the way back, we drove through it and the fires were gone and everything seemed to be contained, but it was smoldering and just dead. Right. Like it's just, if people have ever seen the aftermath of wildfires, it's just you can't believe it.
It's all crown fires, right? Like you could like it's like what so wildfire is a natural part of any forest ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, what's been happening is like there's been like a huge effort for fire suppression for over 100 years, I think, in Canada, and so there's a bunch of standing deadwood, and then with forestry, you know, 100 years ago or 80 years ago, you know, they planted huge swaths of monocultures across the landscape that are all exactly the same age. So you kind of combine those two things, plus climate change is getting hotter and hotter.
Mm-hmm.
So now what used to be this common thing for every, you know, forest ecosystem have these kind of low forest floor fires that would kind of run through, and like certain cones, like pine cones, certain species of pine and spruce tree will have cones that are, I think the word serotinous, where they will only open after a wildfire. Like it takes heat to kind of open the seed. So like these plants have evolved with wildfire, and like rejuvenates the soil and like puts fresh nutrients into the soil, and so it's actually really, really healthy. But the problem is with all this standing dead wood, this fire just gets out of control, and oftentimes it like hits the canopy of the tree, and then the trees die. So you have these old trees that are dead. So you have a ton of just like, it's just devastation. And now with mountain pine beetle too, so like these huge, massive stands of just standing dead tinder, like stuff that if you sneezed at with like a cigarette in your mouth, it would light this thing on fire. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem in BC. It's a big problem in Alberta. And I don't know how you deal with it. I don't know and I'm not an expert. So there are some smarter people than I do who have, systems in place and programs, I'm sure, to sort of help deal with it. But it's a big problem, particularly in Western Canada.
The worst is when I hear that some of these are human caused. Yeah. Like that just.
Well, the thing is though, fire. What's the word? Not fire detectives. Fire
investigators.
Investigators. No, but there's another word. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Fire investigators, let's call them, are very good at finding the source of a fire, even massive fires. They can usually
that's amazing.
Track it down to like. And somebody explained to me once, and I can't remember how they do it, but there are patterns you'll notice. And if there's like steady winds, you can kind of trace it back to where it was. And like sometimes it'll be as neat where like it'll just funnel down to like a point, and you can find like an abandoned camp or something where somebody didn't put their fire out, or somebody just flicked a cigarette, or the heat off exhaust on quads. The quads like like other ATVs ripping down cut lines. And like it'll just be hot and they'll start grass on fire and all that stuff.
Wow.
But like they're pretty darn good at figuring out where the fire started, and I don't know how often that like gets back to the person who started it. But there have been cases where people are like, "Oh, you're the one that started this wildfire that burned over 1 million hectares of forest and a bunch of people's houses and killed some people. Like you are on the hook for this, sir." So anybody out there thinking about starting fires, number one, fuck off. Number two, you might get caught. So, come on now. Yeah.
That whole town of Lytton, man, got burnt down.
It was so
it's
sad.
Just sad stuff.
Quick. I remember when I was a kid, we lived in a log cabin in Whitehorse. And my mom got me out of school one day because there was a wildfire in the area and the winds had shifted. And so we had to pack up. We had to have basically go bags ready where like if things align, there's a chance that we could lose our house, and we kind of got to get ready to go. But nothing ever came of it. We were totally fine. But I just from what it sounds like, what happened with Lytton, people barely had that time. Like they just it was just all of a sudden a town was gone.
Well, I mean, I heard this story, and I think this man is from Lytton. We're going in a sad direction here, but we've already kind of opened that can of worms. Bummer. But this man, he was apparently with his mother and father, and they were barbecuing, and they smelled smoke, and so then they, I think the man went to go. He had dug a trench or something for some other project, and he told his parents to wait in the trench, and so he went to go check to see where the fires were and how fast they were coming. And they'd come so fast is that there was a power line that got hit. The power line landed on top of the trench. Yeah, and his the next time he saw his parents were gone. Jesus. So yeah, it's just these things happen so fast, which is why frankly I was nervous driving down that highway, and you just don't know, and you see these people working really hard, but you think. The only thing that gave me comfort was like, I know this is a major artery, right, to connect certain areas. And so they're probably going to do all they can to protect that highway, right? Because they just evacuate people. So that's the only thing that gave me comfort. But man, it's dangerous stuff.
Super.
Scary
very,
stuff.
Very scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Coquihalla is no joke. I used to live in Chilliwack, BC. And I would drive often back to Kamloops. So I would take the Coquihalla. And I did in winter. I was like an 18-year-old. I just moved out. Oh. I was home. I left home when I was 17 to move to Chilliwack, and I think I was 18 when I was going back and forth between Kamloops and Chilliwack a lot. And I would go on the Coquihalla in the wintertime. And I remember being like, I'm an Alberta boy. Like, we drive on snow-covered highways all the time. Like, this isn't an issue because everybody was going so slow. I'm like, you bunch of sissies. Like, get out of my way. And I was driving a 1989 Jeep Cherokee. So I felt invincible, right? Like, you're an 18-year-old kid, you're a little SUV, feeling pretty good. I remember I went to, like, pass a guy and started to, like, fishtail going, like, 100 on the Coquihalla and, like, started to go sideways. And I was like, this is it. I'm just going to die on the stupid Coquihalla. And ended up just, like, whatever. Just luckily got out of it. It wasn't because of my skill. It's just whatever. The gods are with me that day. And then I was the one that everybody was passing because I was going so slow. And that was like my sort of baptism on the Coquihalla. Man,
I think you have to have chains now if you drive on the Coquihalla in the winter. I don't know if it's just trucks, but I definitely saw that. But probably be a smart thing to do.
Oh, man, I'm sure I didn't have winter tires on. It's just stupid, right? You're 18 and you're invincible.
A lot of that. I mean, that time, like, winter tires weren't a big thing. Now it's like everyone.
Is that true? Like, when did winter tires? So, like, that probably would have been 2003. So, like, when did what? So in 1995, did nobody have winter tires? And now in 2021, if you don't have winter tires, you're kind of an idiot. In Alberta, you should probably have winter tires. But like, how, like, is that just like me falling for clever marketing, or like when did the winter tire lobby really take that cause to like make that big switch? Because I've asked that question before. I was like, did they have winter tires?
That's a good question. Maybe it's a combination of clever marketing and then insurance companies. Like, I don't think it's much of a thing in Alberta, but I think in Quebec they give you a discount on your insurance if you have winter tires. And so there must be a bunch of influences. Maybe there's a technological thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're driving on ice, unless you have studs in your tire, not winter tires are not going to do anything, right? But they certainly do help for sure. Just driving in snow, no question about it. So,
for sure.
Yeah, maybe the tech wasn't there as much. I don't know.
I'm not sure either. But anyways, I have them on both my vehicles. That might be a lie. For sure on one.
Maybe it was. I mean, I think I don't know how common chains were, but maybe governments were just like, well, these chains are tearing up our highways. Maybe there's these tire companies are like, oh, well, we got a better solution for you. Maybe there's some of that.
Yeah, that's right. We should do some investigative journalism on this one.
Yeah.
The winter tires. Yeah.
I don't think we could do a whole podcast on it though.
Yeah, we do.
Good.
Yeah, we could do a ton of one. We could do I don't know. Do they give Pulitzer prizes to podcast episodes? We could win a Pewley for the podcast. That would take us to the tip.
Is there a podcast awards?
There's awards for everything, man. There's like awards for, I don't know, like ice cream and whiskey and books and poems and, I don't know, movies, of course.
Yeah.
There's got to be podcast awards. Maybe.
Yeah, I guess it's been around enough that
maybe we should know
there's
that.
got to be something.
Maybe we should know that. So anything else interesting to talk about? You were going to, this box...
Well, you didn't want me to talk about it, but I did have questions about it. But I'm absolutely eager to know why there's this red box on the top of your bookshelf.
So I adjusted my screen because you can only see like from here up or something. And there's this red box, and then Rupesh asked me, "Well, what's in the box?" And I said, "There's just a bunch of embarrassing stuff I bought." And so the story with the box is, here's the kind of guy I am. When it's like when I'm bored or something, I'll just like start looking into things. And if I've like read an article recently or something that kind of sticks in the back of my mind, I'll like go back to like, oh yeah, I should kind of look into this. And so two things are there are two reasons or two events that occurred to lead me to this box. Number one is I read an article on collectibles and how collectibles now are sort of back in style, and there's a huge market around collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
Two is I went back to my parents' house and I found my old comic book collection from when I was a kid. I used to love comic books. I still do. Like, you can find them online pretty easily. The Edmonton Public Library has a great online resource called Hoopla where you can get comic books, and I'll kind of read them sometimes. Anyways, I probably had 200 comics from when I was a kid, and I just thumbed through them. And I was like, I just read this article about collectibles. I should I'll just Google somebody. I'll just punch these into eBay. I had a couple that were worth big money, like hundreds of dollars.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, how do I do that? Like how do I sell this stuff? The second event was I had my old Nintendo and my Super Nintendo, and an old PlayStation 2 with a bunch of old games. And I just put it on. I just like took a picture of all this stuff and I put it on Kijiji for like $80 for everything. There's 3 systems and there's probably 40 games. I got 53 messages within 10 minutes.
I'm not surprised, man. Not surprised.
And so I was like, whoa. And like the first guy was like, I'm on my way, cash in hand right now. I was like, well, okay. And the next guy was like, I'm on my way, like cash in hand, like right now. And after 15 more of those, this other guy texted me and he's like, I will give you $350 for all of it. And I was asking 80, might have been 100.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit. I was like, so I like took the ad down, messaged everybody, been like, guys, apparently I have stuff here that I didn't know how valuable it was, so I'm gonna take it down. And the guy that offered me like $350 was like, yes, you have very valuable stuff. Your stuff is probably worth about $500, but you would have to establish a market for it. Like you would have to find the individual buyer, which is kind of hard to do. He's like, I do that for a living, so it's easier for me. So he was kind of honest with me. So I said, okay, $350, you can have all this stuff. But that got me thinking about. So I like Googled up the games, and I had. If anybody out there has Silent Hill 2 for PlayStation 2, you can sell that game for $100, $150. If you have like Mega Man, Donkey Kong, Contra for Nintendo or Super Nintendo, those are all valuable. Don't just give them away. What are the other ones? There's a couple of PlayStation games that are worth like thousands of dollars. So there's this huge market for these old things. So if you have an old station at home, before you sell it or give it away, just go to eBay and punch in the games and see, and just see what you have. So the video game thing happened, and then I found my comic book collection. I started punching in. I had some super valuable stuff. So I figured out eBay. I figured out how to sell my childhood comic book collection on eBay. And I sold a package of 3 comics like 2 months ago for $400. Like it's
now. Sorry, do people have to know like if they're in a certain? Because I know with hockey card, like I collect cards, they got to be rated, right? Like
totally.
a certain mint level or whatever, right? Do comic books fall in that same?
So they have
thing,
a very similar system. It's actually the same. So Beckett or CGC.
Yeah, Beckett. Yeah.
There's a main one for comics. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can send it away and get it graded. And so if you have a 9.8 graded comic, I've never seen a 10.0 graded comic, but if you have a 9.8 graded comic, let's say that a comic, they call it raw. You know, this is me being sort of nerd. But if you have a raw comic that's in decent condition, that's worth $100. If you have that same comic in a 9.8, it's probably worth $400. So I sold a bunch of my comics, didn't get them graded because you have to send it away, and now it's all super popular and it takes a long time, whatever. So I just sold them. I probably made, I don't know, probably $1,500 off my comic book collection, maybe. No, not that high. Probably $1,000. But then, and here's where the thing happens. I start looking and like, oh, well, these collectibles are. Well, maybe I should buy some, like some that like might grow in value. So I'll just like start buying some. So I bought some comic books. Here's the thing, though. I bought one for $50. It's worth well over $500 now. So like that's pretty good, right? If anybody out there has, and the title is sort of macabre, but it's a very good book called "Something Is Killing the Children." If you have number 1 of that series, it's worth a bit of money. And I bought a couple other up-and-coming series. So there was that. Well, this then leads me into, well, what other kind of collectibles are there? Cards. You just mentioned cards. The market for baseball cards right now is insane. And I'm a baseball fan. So I was like, well, I'll just spend a bit of money on like some up-and-coming rookies, like a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Shohei Ohtani or whatever. Like these guys that are probably going to be superstars, future Hall of Famers. Because if you, like, there's certain Mike Trout. So Mike Trout is genuinely known as the best player in baseball, has been for the last, I don't know, 8, it's like 6 years probably, maybe more than that. His rookie card is worth like $5,000, and there's certain variations of it that are worth like $500,000. Wayne Gretzky's rookie card, again, well graded, just sold for, it was like $3 million or something.
Yep. I heard about that.
Michael Jordan's rookie card now sells for millions and millions. Like there's a huge market for sports cards, which I had no idea. So anyways, I bought some baseball cards of sort of up-and-comer players, which I've since learned isn't really the way to do it, but whatever. You spend $5 on a Casey Mize rookie card, and if later he becomes a Cy Young winner, maybe you can sell it for X amount of money. So that's what's in this box. It's comic books and baseball cards, and all stuff I don't need. And like, I just like have an hour to kill. Just like go on eBay on my phone and like look up a fucking thing and buy a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rookie card. And there's variations of rookie cards. It's not just like there's one. There's
I know. And that's the trick. Unless you obviously go through Beckett and you find out which one's which specific company and type is like the card to get. It's hard to know. Like I remember because I have a ton of cards, which actually
what
show
kind
you
of cards? Like
card
what sports?
Mostly hockey, because I used to collect a lot of hockey cards. I have hockey cards that are from the 1930s and 40s, like of some premier players, like some really solid players.
You should just like punch some of those into eBay, see if any of them are worth anything.
Yeah, I want to. A lot of them are protected. Like I made sure I protected a lot of those cards. But yeah, I'll have to show them to you. And then I have I used to collect some baseball cards too. I only got into basketball really late, so I don't have too many of those. I have a Sammy Sosa rookie card.
Cool. Basketball, that's.
But I see again. I don't know if that is the one that I need to have. So that's the trick and I don't know how they determine that. I guess it's based on like how many they produced, perhaps.
Probably like rarity, maybe, and like also if rarity, it looks good. Like this is the crazy thing. It's like Ronald Acuna Jr. is an upcoming star. He's one day in his career he might hit 40 home runs, steal 40 bases in the same year, which is pretty impressive. He has a rookie card, one where his bat is pointed up, and that's worth like $200. He has a rookie card where his bat, it's the exact same card, but his bat is pointing down over his back. It's worth thousands because it's more rare. It's the exact same swing.
Yeah.
The picture's just taken like half a second later, and Topps took that picture. It's a good picture, and just like made way less of it, and then they made like. There's like variations on like just the normal ones. So you can get like fancy, flashy ones. And those ones are worth like tens of thousands of dollars. Just anyways. So it has to be rarity, I guess. And if the picture's good. But anyways, sorry to cut you off.
There's all kinds of things, man, that you can invest in. Apparently if you bought like a bottle of wine from Bordeaux, France, it was like it outperformed the S&P 500 over the last 50 years, apparently. Like I read something crazy like that, right? Or you've heard about these non-fungible things. I still don't understand what these things are. I actually want to dive into this at some point. But like that is the thing, and it's just virtual.
Yeah, like when I read about non-fungible tokens, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. But
sorry, non-fungible tokens.
But then people are like if you own the first whatever, like the original Mona Lisa, let's say, it's invaluable. Like it's so valuable that there probably isn't a price on it. Maybe there is. I don't know. I'm not an art guy. Or you can buy a picture of it for $5. But the original is still worth way more money. And with the blockchain and like blockchain economy and something that like tracks every single transaction, you can trace back to whatever that original like GIF is. Like a GIF of a cat with like a rainbow behind it just sold for like hundreds of thousands or like $1 million or something. Because it's a popular GIF. And you could trace it back and see, oh, this guy owns the original GIF. And you and I could have copies of it on our desktop. But if you want the original one, you can see who owns it. And like you can buy those things. And so that's sort of the idea behind non-fungible tokens. And like I think the NBA is selling non-fungible tokens of like
everyone's
highlights of like sports.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's probably, I mean, some people think it's the future. Some people think it's just like the stupidest thing in the world. But I don't even know how you go about buying it. Like you probably need Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. Anyways, so like collectibles, different ways to invest, all that stuff. Even like cryptocurrency, I've been looking into that a little bit. Don't know anything about it, but Ethereum is super interesting.
You're diversifying, man. You're getting away from those vanilla ETFs. You're getting into all kinds of tradables and
nothing,
NFTs and crypto. And
no money that I'm just the most boring investment. I'm all index funds. A quarter Canadian, quarter American, quarter international, quarter bonds. That's all for my long-term investments. That's all I do. But this is gambling. Like this is basically
this is
just
play
gambling,
money. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you have different investment strategies, and you're a well-read man when it comes to investments. So I won't try to give any advice on that. I just read like 2 books. I was like, yeah, this seems like any moron could do it, so I'm going to do it because I'm a moron. Yeah. Anyways.
Hey, we're at an hour.
Okay.
Do we want to wrap this thing
Call
up
it.
here?
Man, what a trip! Like what a journey that last hour. We covered everything.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to talk to you, man. Let's do it again soon. And hey, folks, we got some guests lined up in October, which I'm really looking forward to. We're gonna have some more throughout the rest of the fall. It's gonna be fun. So keep joining us, and we just appreciate you guys supporting us and subscribing and liking our channel and all that kind of stuff. And leave us comments. Love to hear from that.
Please
so
do.
yeah. All right, buddy.
Hey man, nice to see you. And yeah, hopefully I talk to you again in not 6 weeks.
Okay, appreciate it.